Hey everybody, welcome to Campus Comics Cast, coming to you from Carbondale, Illinois, with special guests from the Campus Comics crew. And now, here's your host, the man with the previews in hand, Mike No.
Hello and welcome again to Campus Comics Cast. This episode we will not be going through the previews catalog. We just got that one done and that should be up in the next couple of days. Doesn't matter when I'm saying this because this is whenever you listen to it. So
it is a recorded podcast.
That's right. So anyway, we are inside Campus Comics again here on Main Street in Carbondale. And we're going to do a little bit talking about several different subjects tonight, and help me move things along and keep me on track are
Dan Brown
and Scott Reed.
Okay, so first of all, before we get started and talking about any of the other media stuff that's involved, you know, like in movies or anything like that, and we are going to be talking about some comics that are coming out, we need to take just a few minutes to talk about one of the greats in the early days, especially of, you know, the late Golden Age, early Silver Age, and then into the Age of Marvel. You know, and that was the passing on, when was it, June 29th?
I think they announced it on Friday.
Yeah.
But he had passed apparently a couple of days prior to that, is what I'd heard. So.
Right. And we're talking about Steve Ditko, who may not be the household name that, like, say, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Bob Kane, or any of those kind of people are. But he was nonetheless, you know, a super important part of, you know, that era of comics, and especially in Marvel.
Yeah, I think part of that too is he didn't want to be a household name. He was very, private. I know when the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film came out, Wizard requested an interview with him like 9 times, and he shot him down every time.
Right.
Yeah, and that wasn't just a new thing with him in his later life. He was that way apparently almost his entire life, and he just always was apparently very, very private. There are very few photos of him available online. I regularly see on eBay people selling his high school yearbook, attempting to sell his high school yearbook for hundreds of dollars a copy. So it's there are very few photos of him out there.
That's probably the most common photo I've seen of him was his high school yearbook photo. We're jumping right into this, but really, you know, Steve Ditko, again, like, he's not as big a name as that, but he was the co-creator of several characters that are still being printed today, most notably, obviously, Spider-Man. It was Stan Lee and Steve Ditko co-created Spider-Man. Also, Doctor Strange. He was a co-creator of that. Went on, you know, worked a lot with Charlton. You know, I think he did the Ted Kord Blue Beetle, right? He created him, and other DC characters like the Question.
Well, the Question was a Charlton character as well.
Right. They've all been acquired by DC since.
Creeper, Shade the Changing Man, Hawk and
Dove, Squirrel Girl.
Did
he Speedball? Wasn't his Speedball his as well?
I think so. Dove too is going to be on that new Teen Titans show, I think, that they're doing. So like another character of his in another media.
Right. So it was just. Like I said, not a lot to say about Steve Ditko because there's not a lot to know about Steve Ditko, you know, because he kind of kept all that out of the spotlight. One of the things that was most remarkable to me about Steve Ditko at the time of, you know, Doctor Strange now, you know, with the MCU movies, you know, he's huge. But prior to that, he was probably, you know, a second at best tier character, maybe even third. But, I mean, it happened in the 60s, and it almost foreshadowed the psychedelia of the era because, you know, as he drove all this, you know, the Sorcerer Supreme and the astral planes and all these strange and supernatural things and just the psychedelic artwork that he had, you know, kind of before that was a thing, you know. Before that was a thing, so it was pretty cool.
I've heard, you know, people retelling stories about how looking at some of his Doctor Strange work would lead them to like LSD use and whatever, and then whenever they would if they would see him and talk to him about that, he would be so shocked and appalled that his artwork had that impact on people, that it would lead them to something like that, because it's just kind of humorous how that kind of plays out. So
yeah, very interesting guy. Like I said, there's not a lot to know, but know a lot of. He was really into objectivism and
yes.
Ayn Rand.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what there's no real good story about why he left Marvel and why he left Doctor Strange. Stan Lee's not even saying why he left, but part of objectivism is that there's no belief in anything that's supernatural. So I can't help but suspect that him having this supernatural character and then not matching his personal life maybe led in some shape, form, or fashion to him leaving that and to creating more grounded characters like Question and Hawk and Dove that really don't have superpowers or any kind of magical ability at all. So
right, yeah. So
it's the more he wouldn't sign things. He wouldn't sell his original artwork. There's stories about him destroying or reusing his original artwork. I mean, this is a guy who left. Obviously, money was not an issue for him because he left thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table by not doing this. He could have gone to, he could be pulling in the type of signing money that Stan Lee does, several $100s an autograph if he had chose to do that. But there are stories of people who will, this is one of those things that I intended to do and never just got around to it. But if you would, mail him a letter and ask him some non-comic book related question, and if you included a self-addressed stamped envelope, he would actually respond to your question and sign it at the end. So if you needed a Steve Ditko autograph, that's how you actually do it. And I know of at least two people that actually did this, where they would send him some non-comic question, and he would respond to them. So they have Steve Ditko autographs, but just not on comic books.
Right.
Yeah,
it's just any subject. Subject other than,
so you could talk to him about Ayn Rand or Atlas Shrugged or some political issue or something completely off of comics, and he would be into it. I was looking at I had some notes about some things. I guess to me, his best work, or the thing that I appreciated the most, though, was definitely his Doctor Strange stuff. The way he envisioned some of those cosmic concept characters like Eternity and stuff were just fantastic. And then those made it out of the comic media into, like you had mentioned before, into just like some pop culture and stuff at the time when that was released. So.
Yeah, so much of his personality, too, just seems like such a counterpoint to Stan Lee, though. Yes. This sort of shameless self-promoter. It's like, you almost wonder, like, is that part of why he was so reclusive? Just like, Stan does this, there's no way I'm ever doing that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it was, of course, but it seems to be such a flip side to that kind of mentality.
But he was working, as far as we know, up until definitely the last few months. So it was even at age 90, it was kind of a shock to hear about him passing, because you would still see new stuff solicited from Steve Ditko from time to time, especially like the Mr. A stuff was what I think he was working on recently. I spoke to somebody about Ditko this last weekend at a convention that I was at, and the reason why he did a lot of self-publishing and stuff was that, or not through Marvel or DC, because these are companies that would have loved to have Ditko stuff, and he just did not want any of his work to be manipulated. If he did something weird and put it on a page, he wanted it represented exactly as he had it on the page. So,
because I heard that was why he didn't want to give autographs or do appearances or anything. He just wanted to communicate to people through his work. Yeah. That's kind of like, I don't want to talk to anybody. If they want to get to know me, read my stuff. Yeah. Look at the stuff that I've drawn. Kind of that way. And
of course, with that whole objectivism, part of that is that if a person should do what they think is right and what makes them happy, as long as it doesn't step on somebody else's happiness, then that's what they should do. And he probably practiced that to the fullest. So definitely any individual that I'm aware of, anyway.
Right.
So yeah.
Interesting guy in the comics world. And like I said, I wasn't aware he was working, and still working. And then some of the stuff that he did work on was really surprising, to me. And I don't have the list in front of me right now, but some of the licensed properties and stuff that he did work on was kind of surprising.
Do you think we get tribute books out of this?
I hope so.
You think Marvel prints something or DC reprints some old stuff?
There will be, at a minimum, we'll see on most of the major comic publishers in the next month or two that back cover or something, salute like we saw for most of the creators as they pass. So so hopefully we'll get something. So
right, I would think so, as we should.
Yeah, and hopefully like in 10 years, since he was 90, we'll get the Ditko 100 book like we got the Kirby and Eisner 100
right,
stuff. So.
Right. So yep.
Is there a favorite work everybody has of his, or anything that you would recommend to people checking out?
Well, we talked in the last episode of our previous episode about that epic Doctor Strange collection, and I think that's a great place to start. With Ditko, because it's a character that most people now know, and then you can't go wrong with Spider-Man.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Some of that stuff, just like any of that early Marvel stuff that we've talked about, how groundbreaking that was.
Yeah.
I just remember, I didn't read it. It was still pretty unusual. I was reading comics mostly in the early to mid 70s. And of course, by that time, Spider-Man had been around 10 years or so. But it was still pretty shocking, if to look back and realize, that the Vulture, the bad guy won. You know what I mean? That's something you didn't really see, like in that era of comics. And again, that was the whole Marvel House of Ideas, things that the heroes that have the foibles, all that stuff. But to have the bad guy, to win in a battle, that was really unusual.
Yeah. And even with his art, it's just like he drew a lanky Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah.
This is before John Romita. It's like, so it wasn't sort of a more buff, sort of typical superhero physique for Spider-Man. He was the skinny teen.
Yep.
And I can't remember, I don't think it was the first appearance, but I remember reading a reprint, of course, of an early Dr. Octopus story. And I just remember there's one panel that always stood out for me where he's just kind of sitting on a rooftop, and it's just sort of a dumpy-looking Doc Ock, but it's just a really well-done panel, and it's you can kind of see that in real life, how that would be.
Yeah, just pretty inspired, and just the idea of doing the Spider-Man and everything like that with that. And I think that was one of the things that really connected, doing Spider-Man. Everybody could relate to being an awkward teenager and then to completely cover his face, so you could imagine yourself being that, what I mean? That was pretty much a stroke of genius. One of the best costume designs to this day, I think, in all of comics is the Spider-Man costume. So, all right. Anything else there?
Yep. R.I.P. Steve Ditko.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Okay, the other thing we're going to talk about, we don't really too much talk about actual specific issues of comics. This is where we're going next, right?
Yeah, Batman 50.
Of course, the purported and long built up to and long led up to wedding issue, Batman number 50 in Tom King's run, the wedding of Bruce Wayne / Batman to Selina Kyle / Catwoman. So
this is episode 19 we're recording?
Yes,
it's
episode 19.
I've gone 18 episodes without swearing, right?
Well, and let's keep that going. So I don't have to bleep anything out. So we have the non-explicit tag on 19. So sorry.
So I take it you are not happy.
I've been reading Batman consistently since 1992. This is one of the bigger letdowns of the time I've been reading this book.
Right.
And usually, and I'm not saying it's the worst story. It's definitely not. But the problem is when the biggest disappointments are like from the best creators.
Yes.
Kind of when they stumble.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this issue is. Tom King's had a really good run on Batman so far. He's had interviews lately kind of talking about this book where his big scheme is he will do probably a 100-issue run of Batman. So for him, he's halfway through this big story he's telling. That's fine. Don't build this issue up the way you did.
No.
I assume we're going to say spoilers.
Oh yeah,
on this because we're gonna get
Spoil heavy.
We're gonna get into this.
Yep. Spoil this. Spoil Cap number 1.
You had a whole bunch of lead up to this. You had the proposal, and then you had months before she answered.
So it was it was in the 30s, right, where the proposal started. So we've had nearly over 12 issues, and probably more than that. Of course, with twice a month, I guess that's 6 months.
Right, but still. And then you have the prelude issues that they did leading up to this.
Yeah, prelude to the wedding.
Which were all basically filler. And the thing is, this isn't a bad issue. It's a bad ending to the story, though. And for as much build up, And like we kind of hinted at on our last episode, Marvel just did a fake out wedding a few weeks ago that upset people. Now DC has done it where Catwoman sort of leaves Batman at the altar or the rooftop, I guess technically.
Runaway bride.
Yep.
And I'm like, why have this build up if this is where you're going with it?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
You're just lost for words.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I've got some things, but you go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's just like, to me, I mean, like Dan said, it's not that it's a bad issue. It's just I don't know. I really like the way it was done, the way the story was told. I just don't like the way the story was. You know what I mean? I mean, to frame it within, the letters that Bruce and Selena left for each other, to frame it in a back and forth, and you're reading hers, you read his, you get that kind of side of the story, was pretty brilliant. There was some, this ended up being, it was kind of jarring. I guess it's like a pinup book that nobody really asked for.
Yeah. Well, me and Scott were kind of talking about that beforehand, and DC has a sort of history of doing that in their big anniversary issues where they'll put pinups throughout it and stuff like that. And so it's like, okay, I can see that.
Right.
But that's not what this is. This is a fake out.
Right.
They're trying to give it that sort of impact that you normally see in these big DC books, but that's not what this is. So it really feels like a waste when they did that. Because you have Frank Miller doing a page in this book. Is this a book that you think needed Frank Miller doing a page in?
No.
know?
Right, yeah.
And some other really good Batman artists in there.
Yeah, anybody that's seemed to have any kind of significant role in the Batman storytelling in the last, 20 years, maybe.
Yeah. Had a page. So this to me is the worst Tom King story that I've ever read. I was extremely disappointed. It definitely was that whole runaway bride thing. Now, you mentioned again that he's got this 100, issue arc or something planned out. And is this something they're maybe going to revisit at some point?
I hope not.
At this point, they better not.
I don't want them to. At this point.
We don't want to go. We don't want another 12, 20 issue build up for something, and then say what the heck, what's going on.
And even if they do get married, now I don't care.
Yeah,
right.
Because that's the thing. Leading up to this, I'm like, okay, it's comic books. This isn't going to be forever.
Sure,
but you've got a character that's going to be 80 years old next year. This will give them the chance to tell different kinds of stories. And
we know at some point in the future, if this had actually happened, something would come along and they would end that wedding, and they would do Rebirth 2 or
a new crisis,
a new deal with Mephisto,
right.
But it's just like in that time period though, we could have some really cool stories.
I mean, something different. I think that was the other thing that really disappointed me about this was the fact that it just drives home that point that you really can't do anything new with this character witut upending and just doing away with everybody's whole concept of it. Would it not have been more challenging to Tom King, to write some stories where maybe Batman is happy for a few issues, what I mean? And then the strain that it puts on the relationship, because that one prelude to the wedding with at the end where Damian's interacting with Selena. And they're like basically saying, hey, we're in a house of goody goodies. You got my back, I got yours, because I'm not going to be good all the time. That's interesting. You know what I mean? And could we have not had a little bit of that going on before something happens?
So much, man. Like, even, I'm going to say post-crisis. They've done so much to build up sort of Batman and his surrogate family.
Right.
This was the missing piece of the family, And don't tell me you couldn't do some good Batman, Catwoman, Harley, Joker stories.
Sure.
I always feel like that's something they should have played up with Harley Quinn, is that Joker has somebody, and on some level he knows Batman doesn't. You know what I mean? I always feel like that's something they should have played up with that relationship. And, you could have done some really cool stories with that now.
Right.
I did not like all the pinups in this. To me, that should have been back of the book type thing. I mean, this issue without the pinups, all that text that was on those pages, I mean, you're looking at maybe an 8-page story, if that. If you just remove some of the pinups, were completely unrelated to the story. What's Superman and Lois Lane doing in one of these pinup?
Well, I think that was a flashback to a story they just did, where they were like, it's sort of like a history of their relationship.
Yeah, but this is not a Superman Lois. This is supposed to have been focusing on Batman. I just didn't care for that. The whole letter thing. We had it felt too much like the color books that we had from Jeff Loeb and Tin Sale, where you had Peter Parker writing. Of course, it was to a dead Gwen Stacy. You had Matt Murdock writing to a dead Karen Page, but it was that whole communicating through letters type of a thing that we've kind of seen that before. So yeah, this was really, again, I was just so disappointed in this book. It's my least favorite thing I've ever read from Tom King. So. But I guess to me there was one positive thing from this, and we did have and this was in one of the non-pinup pages. We did have a nice moment finally between Bruce Wayne and Alfred. So I did like that, an acknowledgement of Alfred's role that he's played in Batman's life. And then I want to say some more about the last page, but let's finish talking about the actual wedding stuff before we get to there. So.
I don't know what else there is to say. It's just like it's
so much hype.
Yeah, so much hype and no payoff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You knew it's not gonna last. It's not. But especially
with these characters, it makes sense that it wouldn't last.
Absolutely.
No one's gonna throw a fit when they separate
or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the realization that Selina comes to for whatever reason that this can't be.
Yeah.
He's not going to be who he is if he's happy and all this stuff, and it's just
such a cop out.
Exactly.
And the whole premise to me, this is another bad premise, that Bruce Wayne Batman is going to rely on a drunk justice of the peace, not remembering that he got them married the night before. This is so dumb.
It's not like you can, if only you could go on the internet and get a license to perform marriages.
Does Martian Manhunter not have an identity where he's a priest or something?
If it's not going to be official, have the paperwork done, then just have a ceremony and be done with it.
Right.
Yeah. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, this is just
And
somebody wanting to have it both ways.
Yep. And then it was pretty disappointing. And then are we ready to talk about the last page, the reveal?
Yeah, I got nothing to say about the rest of the issue.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, the only other thing I really want to mention on this is sort of the fallout, where I was really looking forward to Joel Jones' Catwoman book, and now it's just
who cares?
Yeah, now it's like, okay, so now we have another Catwoman book where it's not the status quo for Catwoman. It's she's on the run, she's staying away from him.
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
Why do I need to read this book now?
And then even when that book hits the shelves, you know what I mean? The Catwoman #1 hits the shelves the same week as Batman 50. Yeah. Just reading the text that's been added to the art, do you kind of not know it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just thought that was not good, But just kind of nothing good. But then you're gonna add something?
No, I'm on. I'm just turning to the last page just to talk about that a little bit.
Gotcha.
In case.
So then, after all this, we go to the last page, where it's revealed. First of all, why was Holly in Arkham?
Because Catwoman had taken the blame for some murders that Harley had committed. They had to resolve that before they would get married for whatever reason.
Okay.
So Holly is in prison for that now.
For the murders.
Yeah. So Selina was taking.
This was part of the engagement. Why would she be in there? She's a petty thief.
Yeah, this was part of the engagement story.
Okay. Yeah. So Selina that's the reason why they're quote unquote such good friends, is because Selina had really kind of for a long time was taking the fall for this character.
Oh, okay.
So and then you get this big. So let's say we get this big betrayal here at the end. So we're back in Arkham Asylum, and we have her kneeling before Bane, and basically saying, "Oh, hey, the bat is broken," which I guess is tying back towards the first volume of the Tom King Batman series. Yeah. So
which was a really good story.
Yeah. But
now it looks like has Bane masterminded everything over these last 50 issues.
Maybe.
Because now we have Joker and Riddler standing side by side when we had the War of Jokes and Riddles story where apparently they were at each other's throats, which predates Tom King's run, supposedly. So how long has Bane been planning this? Yeah. But we also have Gotham Girl in there.
Of course, with Psycho Pirate, right?
Yeah,
having
Psycho Pirate.
helped her with her, but apparently there's something else going on there. So... And Hugo Strange and all that. So it's
Here's my thing. Yeah. How is Flashpoint and why is Flashpoint Batman here? What does that mean? Because I don't remember him being a part of this at any point.
Okay, is that...
Yeah,
well, he does have the red eyes, doesn't he? Yeah,
he's got the circle around the bat.
So that's Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, I guess, unless this is something they're sneaking in here. I don't know what that's about.
Unless it's a shape changer or something. I don't know.
Why would be changing into that?
Yeah.
Like a character who's not supposed to exist anymore.
So this does lead to some promise down the road for this Batman title. Or, so there's something interesting there. But
I also want to point out that Skeets, Booster Gold's robot, is also in this panel. So I assume that ties into the Booster Gold story right before this, too.
I haven't read that yet.
Yeah, so. I don't know how that works in, if he has corrupted Skeets somehow or how that works.
Well, I haven't read a few issues leading up to this because I was on the 5th volume of Batman, so I don't know if I've read volume 6, and then this would be part of volume 7. So there were some things that I missed. That's the downside of reading an issue. When you read out of trades, is you come along and read a single issue and you miss some stuff. So
Tom King definitely has some work to do to kind of undo what he he did on this. Hopefully we do get a cool story from Bane, out of all this, but I don't know.
Disenchanted, is that how you call yourself? Yes.
I think the only way this could be worse is if it turned out this was just a long scam by Selina to rob Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? And I'm glad they didn't do that. But it's also like, ugh.
And then, of course, Selina reveals Bruce Wayne's identity to her.
Well, it sounds like she's already known.
Yeah, but
back in the day.
But still, that was a big breach of trust.
Right.
So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think that might go back to like year 1 or something, even from what they're saying in here. So, I would say even before their relationship, probably.
Goodness. So, anyway, I don't know if we're going to rate these or not.
We can. That doesn't matter to me. So this is one thing bad about like comic ratings is that my rating for this is a very good minus, which sounds like that. Like to somebody hearing that says, "Well, that's not too terrible. You must have kind of liked it." But no, that's like a 3.5.
Look at the scale.
Yeah, it's a 3.5. So that's my ranking on it. Is a very good minus.
Yeah, I'm gonna say good.
Yeah,
on this,
and I'm real close to being there.
It was a disappointment. Yeah. And the thing is, too, for me, the biggest disappointments are from the talented creators.
Yep.
Yeah, they've got a better story in them.
It just seemed lazy, seemed cop out, lazy, and just more of the.
I just wonder if editorial at DC kind of got in the way or something. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, why did we even have this story to begin with?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Do it. Yeah,
money.
There's that, I suppose.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to agree with Dan on that one. Just give it a good. Which again, good in rating comics is not good.
Not good. No, that's a good as a 2.0. So
right. Yeah.
Out of 10.
Out of 10. On a 10 scale. So.
Oh boy. Not fans here. So. All right, the next book
a little better. Yeah,
a little better.
A little better.
Okay.
Well, if you want to talk about more of the same,
yeah,
we're going to talk about Captain America number 1.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Captain America number 1.
Which Captain America number 1 is this?
Oh, this is the 2018 Captain America number 1. And I did, because I didn't want to mispronounce the name, so I did get online to make sure I would say the author's name right. And his name is actually pronounced Ta-Nehisi.
And I've always been saying it wrong.
Right. Well, I mean, haven't we all? I think I said Ta-Nehisi. I think I've said so many things, but I did read it, and then I'm like, okay, is this for real or is he joking? Because I was reading some articles by him, but I watched some YouTube interviews, and that's how he said it is Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Okay.
So this is his first issue of writing this with Lionel Francis Yu on art, and again, this is coming, and I will admit, ashamedly, now that and the one trade of Wade's run is out in Cap, so I'm going to give that a read. But I have not read any Captain America in a long time. This is the first issue I've read in a long time. Didn't read any Wade's, so I did read this issue, and so I don't have a lot of frame of reference other than to the Brubaker, runs probably the last solid stuff I've read of it. So
I don't feel like you with Cap, you don't, as long as you know that there was some fallout. Basically, all you need to know going into this is that there was a lot of fallout from Secret Empire. So we had a fake Captain America, fooled the nation, and the real Cap comes back, and now Cap is having to kind of rebuild his reputation, which to to me seems kind of silly that he's like people saying, oh, we can't trust Captain America anymore because there was a fake Captain America for a while. But that's kind of the premise that this is sort of built on. So, and by the way, the Secret Empire storyline was actually pretty solid. So if you haven't read that, read that.
That was Hydra Cap.
Yes, that was Hydra Cap.
Secret Empire.
So,
yeah. So, which made big news again because that's what Marvel does too.
Mm-hmm. Well, Secret Empire was the resolution of Hydra Cap story, which started back in another Cap #1, whenever that one was, 2015 or whatever that Captain America #1 was. So.
Gotcha. So I know, kind of interesting that these two books were chosen because Batman, I would say, is Dan's favorite character. Right. And Captain America's
absolutely my favorite character.
Yeah, Scott's favorite character. So it's kind of cool. That
I will give them points for coming out with Captain America #1 on the 4th of July.
Oh, yeah.
That was called I had to get it in the store and get it on that day.
Right. So,
and it was worth the trip over here to Campus Comics to pick it up off the shelf.
On the 4th of July.
On the 4th of July. So, got to hang out on Independence Day. Yep.
That's right. So Scott, being your favorite character.
Okay, I'll just go and you guys just interrupt me wherever you want to interrupt me. So, all right. So I think under the current social climate that there is in the United States, along with the fallout from the Secret Empire storyline, that this is a good book to have Ta-Nehisi Coates on at this time. I think there's a real good chance for him to, do what he does as far as how he writes. Now, this issue to me was a little slow. It's very slow moving. I feel like you need to have read the Free Comic Book Day Captain America story to really, otherwise you're just sort of thrown into a fight. You don't know what's going on or how that fight started or anything. I was a little concerned about this book, but I do not feel like Cap was portrayed at all out of character. So that was my big concern. I don't want Ta-Nehisi Coates to change Cap too much. There's a certain way that Captain America should be written, and I feel like he honored the legacy and the history of the character. So, kind of just jumping straight in, it starts off of all places in Russia with Hydra, and it's kind of funny. I actually had some trouble identifying some characters, and I'm even at this point not sure who a couple of characters are. So we have this blonde in the back of a Hydra vehicle on page 1, and I at first I thought it was Sharon Carter. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, well here's Sharon Carter. Well, I learned very quickly when she starts talking about Mother Russia, okay, that's not Sharon Carter anymore. So then we meet up with some lone figure on this frozen winter road, dressed all in black, and then I thought, oh, okay, so like it's jumping over to like page, I don't know what page I'm on right now, probably about like page 7. That's like, okay, so it was a blonde, so maybe it was Emma Frost. And then I thought this was the Black Queen from the Hellfire Club, but no, I don't think that's who that is. So at this point I really don't know who these two characters are, and maybe they're, I guess I'm assuming that they're new characters. Right. Do either of you have any ideas?
One Cersei, they said.
Cersei?
Yeah. I thought that's what they said, the one in the black. I thought she was the next main character.
Celine. I thought it was Celine.
No, maybe I'm getting confused.
Yeah, Celine. Yeah.
Celine. Alexa. Okay. Somebody calls somebody Alexa at some point, doesn't she?
So
I thought she was an X-Men character,
well,
but
that would
wrong.
be. I mean, because that's why I thought at that point it might be the Black Queen.
Right.
So, but I'm still not 100% sure who these characters are. The power set seems similar, but it's been a while since I've read that character in X-Men, so I wouldn't bet money on it or stake my life on it or anything like that. So now we finally get to on page 9 of the book where we have the continuation of that Free Comic Book Day story, where we have the Nuke program, which it was out of Born Again, Frank Miller's Born Again. So I thought this was a nice throwback, and they even kind of allude to that, where Cap says, "Oh, in the past I've been able to talk to these guys." Right. And of course in the past it was talk to that guy. Now it's a whole program.
No, not this guy, but guys like him.
Yeah. Are these clones?
No, I think these are
just guys they've recruited.
These are guys. These are guys that they've recruited. Apparently, have cyborg enhanced, and they've put them on the red and blue pills, just like what I don't think they ever show them using the red and blue pills like they did in Born Again, or in the whenever they had Nuke in the Netflix Jessica Jones series. But
here's the other thing too about the pills. Didn't they at some point come out and admit those were placebos that they were giving him?
They may have.
I think that might have been on like Wolverine Origins or something. I think years ago I read. So who knows if that's even still the thing.
But anyway, so I thought that was a good, throwback to the Frank Miller story, and I think this is a good fit as a quote unquote villain for Captain America
definitely
at this
seems
time.
like a good villain for
because
him.
It's kind of like you have the competing ideas. I mean, it's pretty clear whose idea is right here. I mean, definitely Cap's over the nuke program, but there you have it. You get a little paranoia from Winter Soldier Bucky because Cap had got some Stark tech that would help him with cyborgs. Well, guess what? Bucky is sort of a cyborg now too. What else do I got here? Page 13, which I can't remember what it is, but gosh, and of course there's not page numbers in here.
Right.
But anyway, I think it's where we're getting the theme for this is basically it's Cap's at some point is going to have to rebuild his image. And towards the very end of the story where we have Cap talking to the boy, of the father who was shot, and this is basically how Cap feels like he's going to have to do it. It's going to have to be one person at a time. So there's not going to be a whole lot of rousing speeches because rousing speeches is what he did in Secret Empire, and that's how he got to where he was at. Yeah, well, not how the country perceived that he got them
or his reputation.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I'm a little. I wish they would de-age Sharon Carter.
Yeah, that threw me
because that came out. That goes all the way back to the Rick Remender Cap story where he goes into. Zone. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, yeah.
Like in an alternate universe, and time passes. A lot of time passes there, but very little time. Old Steve Rogers came back. Old Sharon Carter came back. Steve Rogers is now de-aged, but Sharon Carter is still old Sharon Carter.
Yeah,
so.
I hadn't put that together because at first it was just like, is she older? Is they just drawn her? Because Lionel Francis Hughes art, it's kind of has just those lines a lot, like
kind of like
overdone.
what Frank Quietly does, where he puts a lot of detail and that kind of ages the characters.
Right, yeah. So I wasn't sure, but then whenever they're sitting there talking together, and she says, I didn't get a new body, basically, like you did.
Yeah.
So okay, I said. So
would you think he could figure something out for her? Just saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's
he has friends who are gods.
Yeah.
So someone can help him with this.
But at some point they're gonna have to do something with that because Cap needs, in my opinion, Steve Rogers needs to be with Sharon Carter. So that's
why can't they just be together? Why you gotta be all ageist about it?
I'm gonna be all ageist about it. We can talk more about that whole ageist thing when we get to the Cage Netflix series as well. So I think overall it's a pretty good start to his run.
Okay.
I'm giving it the benefit of a doubt that at this point, I like it. I will keep reading it because I'd probably read Captain America regardless. I definitely am not dreading reading the first trade of this story. So I am looking forward to it moving forward. So and hopefully figure out who the heck these people are. And then then at the end I thought, well, maybe it's Madam Hydra because she was all in looked like she was all in green, but no, she's not black. She's not Viper because she doesn't have the one eye covered up. But
so whenever you're talking about reading the pre-comic book day book, it's the nuke program.
It's
these
the
other
nuke program.
People weren't in that.
It's just the nuke. Yeah, it was basically the nuke program, and they're jumping out of the choppers, and then that's where that takes off.
Okay,
in this one,
it's like I know I read that, but I can barely remember that now for some reason.
Yeah, and I if I hadn't had read that, I think I would have been a little bit more lost than even as lost as I was a couple of times in this book, I would have been even more lost, I think.
Right.
So
right.
But So anyway, what I leave out?
No,
I guess we didn't talk about Thunderbolt Ross showing up.
Right. Yeah. He shows up. I mean, I think this book, to me, it really, I don't know if it's just being out of touch with the character, having not read Wade or read anything since, the Winter Soldier stuff and Brubaker's Run and all that stuff. But, I mean, this could, whereas the Batman issue elicited a response from emotional with me, this really did nothing.
Yeah.
Did nothing for me. So I don't know if that's due, I'm not saying that's due to his writing, if that's just the place that I'm at with this character, but I mean, it really just kind of felt meh, like to me.
Yeah. I've read Wade's run, and this has got nothing to do with Wade's run.
Okay.
So not reading that won't
missing it.
affect this at all.
I just meant by comparison.
Right.
You know, would I be super disappointed in this if I had read Wade's run? Would I?
Well, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Oh, okay.
I really enjoyed Wade's run. I only read Captain America when there's like a really strong team on it. I felt like that. I mean, I'll say it's not fair to this book and to the creators, but that's kind of where I'm at with this, where I really loved that run. Mm-hmm. I wish it were still going on. I know it's not, but that's kind of what I want right now, and that's not what this is. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't think we should judge things based on what they're not.
Right.
You know, that's not fair to the people creating it, but that's how I feel about it. Mm-hmm. I feel like having a new Cap book come out on the 4th of July with an Alex Ross cover should have, got me into it more.
A little bit more excited.
Well, I've been reading Ta-Nehisi Coates on Black Panther, and I have been enjoying that. So, I'm okay with a slow build-up story. How well I ultimately like this comic book is going to depend on the next 5-6 issues.
Right, yeah.
I am okay with it now, but I could say, this whole arc sucks based on what happens next, or it could really go someplace. Well,
I'll tell you what this is missing for me is we've just got a story with Cap fighting Hydra, fighting characters we've seen before. There's no Hail Hydra moment in this book to really grab me like some of the other stories have. And for the first issue, and I realize it's decompressed storytelling, there's writing for trades now, but this is a first issue of a book that was $5. It's like you got to give me something to get me to come back next month.
Number 2,
Well, of course, they're replacing Hydra. Part of this story is they're replacing Hydra with what they call the elites, the power elite, distrusted by a nation that seems to have lost faith in him. Steve Rogers is a man out of time and out of options. Where can a now unsanctioned Captain America turn for aid and assistance in order to stem the rise of the cabal of influence brokers known as the power elite? And this is on the very last page, which has that terrible Alex Ross image of Captain America. But we want to, and this is something we probably should have talked about. We want to hear from you. Write us at mheroes@marvel.com and mark your letters okay to print for a chance to see them answered in future. That's just the letter pages, but yeah. So they're kind of replacing Hydra with this power elite. So instead of getting the Hail Hydra moment, you get the "and I will devour two," whatever he says. Cut off one head, and she says, "I will devour two."
Right.
So they're kind of moving into a different direction a little bit there. So.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
And I think too, comparing, we just talked about Batman 50, talk about this. We're at the front end of this. Whereas with Batman 50, the problem, the reason you get that emotional impact is because you're coming off of 49 other issues, basically a build up to a story where you're absolutely let down on. Right. Whereas with this one, this is a dawn of a new era, and it's probably just a little too early to tell. But since I read this one, I'll probably keep reading it. Just at least. Form an opinion, because right now it's not.
It's not going to keep me from picking up the trade.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So, all right.
So I gave it a fine, which is 6.0. But again, that could actually go down if it doesn't pay off, or it could go up a little bit if once I understand who these characters are. It could say, oh, well, that makes a whole lot more sense to me now. So.
Right. So
I'll go very good with it. It just didn't really grab me either way. I won't pick up the second issue. I'm buying too many books now to get anything that's just bleh. It's like either get me really excited about it or get me real upset about it. And it didn't do either.
Right. And I'll probably give it a fine too. I was fine with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was decent. I didn't hate it and want to stop reading it or anything. It's just kind of like I said. I'm kind of not attached, emotionally invested in the character at this point. So, but it was good enough to make me say, yeah, I'll see where this is going. It did make me kind of want to read some more Cap. You know what I mean? So, maybe it did that. So, maybe read some other stories. So, I think that's kind of where we're at on that. All right, are we down to the last one, or is there something else you wanted to
Nah, Antman and Wasp.
Okay.
Let's go, unless there was something else you guys want to talk about.
I think I'm good. Antman and Wasp. We did see it. I actually didn't laze about and wait for weeks to pass before I did it. I went to see it just a couple of days before we recorded this, and I know Dan just came off of it.
I just saw it a few hours before we recorded this. So,
fresh in your mind.
Yeah, I was able to do that this time.
Right. Have you seen it once, twice?
I've just seen it once.
Oh, okay.
So just seen this one once. I wouldn't mind seeing it again, but
Yeah.
I at this point I've just seen it once.
Oh,
So,
okay. All right. So, initial thoughts?
so I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I was, of course, spoilers, but
Sure, absolutely.
I was surprised whenever I saw Ghost in the trailers, how excited I got to see that character, because this is really this character's a non-factor in the actual Marvel universe,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
but that actually was pretty interesting. And then of course you find out later on that it's not really the Ghost character from the Iron Man books. We've got a female Ghost character, and the actress Hannah John Kamen. I really enjoyed Ghost on the screen. I thought she had a good backstory. I thought she had a good motivation about why she was doing what it was. I thought the special effects for the Ghost
the way
effects
she
were
was-
really
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really cool, and how she was able to use those powers in combat. There's a really, really great fight scene between her and Wasp. So yeah, I really kind of enjoyed this movie.
From the first one, I really liked the first one. I liked the Antman solo movie. I liked it a lot. It was a lot of fun. But I think that was one of the big differences to me on this. I really thought that this one really upped the action sequences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to the point where it's like frenetic or crazy or too much, but I thought the fight sequences were well choreographed. They were interesting.
Yes.
There was a lot of great chase scenes, just the way they used the fluctuation in size during the fighting in and out and doing all this, and the way Ghost used her powers during that. It was really entertaining.
That's one of the things that the Marvel movies right now for sure have over the DC movies, is that, so the first Ant-Man movie was a bank heist movie set with superheroes.
Right.
Captain America Winter Soldier is a spy movie set with superheroes.
Correct.
This Ant-Man and Wasp movie is basically a car chase set with superheroes. So you can do so much with these characters. It's not, it doesn't just have to be a superhero movie.
And just a slugfest. It can do other things
You can do
going on.
And that's
It's just like Homecoming was a teen rom-com movie, like a John Hughes movie with superheroes.
Yeah, so they can do so much. It's just that's the advantage that they have over
Yeah.
DC. Yeah,
Right. Crossing all those genres.
Yeah. Back to the Ghost effects real quick. I feel like it also really differentiates her from the Vision.
yes,
Who has a very similar ability, but it looks completely different. It's a lot more erratic, and that kind of ties into the story. But I feel like they just did a really good job of kind of differentiating that, from something that we have seen from them.
Oh yeah, the way she'd just be walking and you'd see one image of her and then a blur and another.
And like you see sort of like a future image of her and a
where
past
she was
image
going,
of her,
where she's been.
Yeah. Really well done. And again, nobody is super into Ghost. No one's going to be complaining that this isn't my Ghost.
Yeah.
Oh, that person is out there.
That person can deal with it. Be happy you're getting Ghost in a movie.
Yeah.
Well, they just, I can't imagine that there could have been any better portrayal of that character in a movie at all. That's just...
And can I just say one thing? It's about time we get Walton Goggins in a Marvel movie. Did you not like him?
I like Walton Goggins. I've really wanted him for like a super villain role.
Right.
I like that he's in the... I just don't want the street level suit guy.
Gotcha.
In my perfect world where I get to make the superhero movies, he would be the Parasite. I think he'd be a great Parasite for a Superman movie. I realize that'll probably never happen, but I would really like to see him in more traditional supervillain role.
Gotcha.
But I love that he's there. If they had to have somebody in there, I'm glad it's him.
Right.
I really like that actor. It's cool seeing him pop up somewhere.
Yeah.
I was super impressed with Evangeline Lilly in this. I every single scene that she was in, I thought that she owned that scene.
She definitely stepped her game up from the first.
Oh,
one.
Yeah,
She was-
absolutely. Her fight scenes and how she was one of the characters I was most hesitant about going into this. I was starting to get excited for this when they had the one fight scene in the trailer of Wasp, shape changing and flying and running down the knife, and had the cool music in the background and stuff going on. I wish they would have kept that music for the actual fight scene in the movie, because the music at that point was a little bit of a letdown from what it was in the trailer. But yeah, she absolutely owned the screen whenever she was on it. So
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of like Magneto and the X-Men movies. It seems like filmmakers really have a lot of good creative ideas for this power set. With the size changing and the back and forth and going, subatomic to gigantic. It seems like this is a power set that they can really kind of come up with creative visual things to do with.
Right. Speaking of the growing, I liked having Lawrence Fishburne in there.
Oh, yeah,
having the Goliath.
yeah.
I'm disappointed they didn't call him Black Goliath. But at
Just
least
the
they
Goliath.
Well, if you want to check out Black Goliath,
Yes.
though, we've got a set of them here at the store.
Entirety. We've got the whole run, which was 4 issues.
Yeah, something like I have the Black Goliath comic, but come check them out if you're interested.
Sure.
And like they had done in Black Panther, they had a younger relative of Lawrence Fishburne play the young Bill Foster in the movie. Yeah, I was trying to. Yeah, it's like there's no telling.
Was it?
Yeah, because his name. Unless there's somebody else named Langston Fishburne that was playing young Bill. So the actor who played.
Weird.
Yeah,
I thought it was just more the de-aging.
No,
CG
it
stuff.
was,
Really?
It was actually a relative of Lawrence
Interesting.
Fishburne. So yeah.
That was, and I really like it, because I keep harping on this, but it's always nice that, really, when they get through that first one and they don't feel necessary to have this powered villains, what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, this is so much more you can do it. It's just so much more interesting and everything like that. And
But she's still tied into that world though too.
Oh, yeah.
So it's still like personal stakes, which they always want in these movies. Pretty much any Hollywood superhero movie is going to have that anymore.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But again, those understandable motivations, that may be carrying them out.
Speaking of younger versions, though, that opening scene with Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer, I thought that looked really good.
Oh, that's great.
Where they have sort of the CG'd younger versions of them.
Yep.
It seems like they're really making strides with that technology, which I know. I think we've talked about before. Martin Scorsese wants that for his next Irishman movie with De Niro and Pesci and all them.
Right.
So we'll see where that goes.
Well, yeah, I thought those CG effects were definitely better than the CG effects at the end of Infinity War 2, where you had the Hulk and War Machine, kind of how they just looked wrong. That didn't look as bad as.
Yeah, but even back in Civil War with the young Robert Downey Jr. and all them, all that looked really strong.
Kurt Russell and Guardians.
Guardians,
yeah.
Pretty. When do we get that technology?
Really, yeah, in real life, yeah. And I think too. I really think the MCU overall needed this movie after Infinity War.
Yeah.
Which was a fantastic movie. Don't get me wrong, but we needed something this lighthearted romp.
Light up until.
Oh yeah, up until.
So, should we keep going with the lottery? We want to talk about the up until.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did like the whole truth serum thing.
Yeah,
that was a little funny.
That was good.
And we get that, and I'm glad they didn't overuse that whole thing about with Lewis, right? Going through the talk to this person, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm glad they just did that once.
Yeah,
I thought that was great. That scene,
and I loved it when I saw that's what they were doing again. It didn't feel like we're just rehashing what we did last time. It's kind of a callback to that, but he's on the truth serum too. And I laughed pretty hard in the theater at that part.
Yeah, Michael Pena's great in that part. It's silly and goofy and kind of throwaway as it is, but he has his moments.
I tell you what, probably the other real big laugh for me was when Scott has infiltrated the school and his regulators malfunctioned, and now he's child size. When he gets back in the van and Michael Douglas asks him how school was today and do you want a juice box, I was cracking up. That's something me and my friends would do to each other if we're in that situation,
Oh yeah.
So a couple things I didn't like in this one. The whole Michelle Pfeiffer coming out of the microverse and magically healing.
It's not the microverse; it's the quantum realm.
I know.
I heard there's legal reasons for that. Actually,
well, there might be if microverse is still part of Micronauts.
Oh, that could be.
That may be the reason why. But okay, so the quantum realm and magically healing ghost. That was just a little too convenient. And not even know who it is. Just touching her.
But she was absorbing quantum particles that whole time.
That was just way too.
That was why they were were trying to get her, though,
Yeah.
right? Was
Yeah.
because they thought she had the energy in it that would heal. Now she went a more direct route, I assume, to what they were planning.
So,
But yeah.
I didn't care for that. And then the stepdad, for Cassie,
Oh.
what he had no
Come here, buddy.
purpose in
Yeah.
this movie
Yeah.
at all. And it's just like, what?
I mean,
I don't.
sometimes stepdads don't, Scott.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, they should
yeah.
just cut those scenes out of there.
Yeah.
They didn't help the movie at all. So, and it's not that they were just bad. They were bad scenes. They were awkward bad.
Well, I
scenes.
feel like that's part of just the reality of Scott's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he has to deal with an ex-wife and a stepdad with his daughter, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you just don't see the stepdad and the dad being all huggy-lovey like that.
Right.
That's just
No,
ridiculous.
and I feel like most of that was on Bobby Cannavale's part. I can't remember his character's name, but
Paxton.
I didn't see Scott reciprocating a lot in those scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I did like the part at the beginning where him and his daughter are playing, and they've made the sort of cardboard fort
Cardboard
thing.
fort,
That was really cute. I thought that was a fun scene.
and his ankle bracelet busts through the fence.
yeah. So that's the thing. Then he's not in Infinity War because he's under house arrest.
Right, and we knew that in Infinity War, which I guess kind of goes. Okay, so we have the timeline about where this fits in with Infinity War. So while he's under house arrest, we know that is, could be anywhere before Infinity War. We have the mid-credit scene, which we know has to take place at the same time at the end of Infinity War, but we don't know.
I don't feel like that's too far after the movie.
No,
though,
no. It seems like it
Right.
should be pretty quick, and it's almost like within a few days.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel like it's kind of pushing it a little bit for
Yeah,
them to
to
build that
develop that.
technology, and then all of a sudden,
Quantum tunnel is small enough to fit in the van.
yeah. But anyway,
Well,
I mean,
is
the
it-
minor
Is it to
quibble.
shrink it
That's the
down?
thing. Is it the same quantum tunnel?
It could
It just
be,
shrunk
just
down.
Shrunk down,
Okay.
yeah. So the timeline is a little iffy, but I think it fits for the most part. So the mid-credit scene, I guess it's going to explain why we will not see Ant-Man in Infinity War 2.
Right.
Or
'Cause-
unless it's a story point for Infinity War 2.
I guess I'd say this probably we're not going to see
Yeah.
him.
Right.
Because Infinity War 2 is an Avengers movie, and he's not an Avenger, so I think unless it's just at the very end,
Right.
But I don't think we'll see him.
I would imagine we'll see a few cameos at the end of that movie when people are being restored and that kind of thing. I'll be surprised if they don't check in with that.
Yeah.
But again, we'll see.
Yeah, because
Nobody's told us.
Right,
We're not
yeah.
we don't have the inside track on that, unfortunately.
not on his speed dial.
Talking about the end, though, where it does line up with Infinity War,
Right,
where
yeah.
you realize why he can't communicate with them because they have all turned to
Turned to
ash.
ash.
I heard there was a little girl very upset about that in my theater this afternoon.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, nobody was
it
upset about it in mine.
Right, because you were the only one.
I was the only guy in the theater when I saw it. So,
But it was sort of a bummer ending, and I think that's kind of why we get the after credits.
The
that
post,
we do.
the post credit
yeah.
scene. So if you haven't seen it yet, one mid credits, one post credit scene. The mid credit is the Infinity War 2 tie-in. The post credit, we get a little glimpse of what's going on in the world post snap. And then we get the ant playing the drums again. So.
Which I thought was a good, funny moment that you probably needed because that was a really bummer ending after the mid credits scene.
yeah, just like that's.
And they did
After such a fun
Guys?
movie,
Guys.
too,
Oh, yeah.
and now they're gone.
End on this.
And he's stranded.
Yeah, and they did make a comment like in some of the early previews, like stay for the scenes, the after credit scenes, because we haven't heard them push that before. I mean, everybody knows, but I've
Right.
never heard
I tell
advertising
you what,
say
you would
stay for
you
the
would
scenes.
think everybody knows.
You
When I
would
saw
think-
Infinity
you would
War,
think.
people were leaving, and I'm like, what? It's 10 years.
Yeah.
It's in
Right.
the it's
Come
in the
on.
logo now. At 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who doesn't know to stay for these movies unless they just don't care and are going to watch it on YouTube in a week?
Right.
You know.
And then our Stan Lee cameo. So
Yeah.
we got the shrunken
That
car.
was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty brief, and but yeah. So it had it all. So I was pretty happy with it.
I was
so,
too.
A couple of minor quibbles, but overall, I thought it was a good movie. So
All right. So rating for me, I'd give it a very fine plus.
Yeah,
Good solid movie.
I'll give it a very fine. That was a good fun movie.
yeah, I had a very fine minus. So I still liked it. Lots of other MCU movies I like more, but I definitely enjoyed it. So.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really think of many that I've liked, that I've enjoyed more. Not that they're
Yeah.
not better
Better
movies,
movies,
Right.
yeah.
but enjoying, I was really surprised with the way I really thought and I loved the first movie, but I thought they really stepped up the game with this. And I thought the chemistry between Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd was a lot better in this one, and a lot more solid. And
I think Evangeline Lilly pulled Paul Rudd along in this movie. It was just, she owned it, and I've always been concerned about her as an actress. I didn't think she was that great in Lost, but man, she knocked it out of the park in this one. So.
Yeah, and again, I just saw this movie a few hours ago, so it's still really fresh for me. Maybe I'll think of something later. I'm like, just something to nitpick, but I can't really imagine that right now.
I'm in the habit now of going home and writing down notes, and I keep a little notebook, and then as I think of other things, like, I better write that down so I don't forget it. So, so we can talk about it.
Right.
Okay, will that do it, gentlemen?
That does it for me.
So,
all right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this podcast of Campus Comics Cast, and we just like to hear your feedback on any of these things we've talked about. If you want to come in and hang out while Dan's here on a Saturday or whatever, I'm usually here too, unless I'm out working at a show or something, which we have a couple coming up here. We'll talk about here in just a sec as we go out. But
and even when we are away at that, the store's still usually open, so don't be afraid to come in.
Yep. So even if we got something going on, we usually have somebody here keeping it going. So love to hear from you, like I said, about any of this, any of the other things we talked about, in any other issue, or episode of podcast with preview stuff or anything you might be interested in, just give us a call here at 618-457-6011. Even better, stop into the store at 816 East Main Street, Suite B. Tentatively, we pretty much have the back room open again now. We've got a lot of dollar books back there. Marvel and DC's ready to go through. Dan's very studiously working on getting through the indie books, and then I always throw, until I throw a curve at him and walk in, I've set some boxes of books that I bought back there, so I have to start going through that again. But always adding new stuff to new bundles here at the store. Come in and get the details on how to start a pull list to stay current with all this stuff that we may be talking about on any of these podcasts. And reach out to us on Facebook, just that's Campus Comics is the Facebook page. Just message me through there, and we get back to you as soon as we can. So hope to see you or hear from you soon.
Yeah, upcoming conventions we got. So Campus Comics and Berg Comics will be at Berg Comics Con Saturday, August 18th. There we've got Don Kramer as our featured guest, along with Justin Holman and Joe Dodd. And if you've never seen a gold record before, hopefully Justin Holman will have his Daredevil soundtrack gold record with him again this year, so you can see one of those. And then also September, I think it's 29th and 30th, right?
Yes,
the Saluki Comic Con. Both of us will be there. Trevor Von Eden, Black Lighting co-creator, super excited to get a chance to meet him. Hopefully we can sneak in an interview with him. That would be terrific. And then, have you talked about Paducah yet? Are you still on the fence about that one?
Yeah, I think I haven't gotten a hold of him, but I think I'm going to do it.
Okay, so hopefully both Berg Comics and Campus Comics will be at the Paducah Galaxy of Heroes Con, which is October 13th. I think it's Saturday, October 13th. So you can search for any of those things on Facebook and get additional information about those.
So
and the store will be participating in Batman Day this year too, right?
Yeah,
so we'll have some stuff going on here.
Yeah.
What day is that?
I think, what was it, September 5th? That's it. What was it? We just talked about it last episode.
Okay. Yeah. So just go back and listen to that one.
Yeah.
September sometime.
Some Saturday in
September.
It's not tied to any particular date for Batman.
No, for some reason. Yeah. So, all right. So, did you guys give your info, or are we done?
It's Dan Brown. You can find me online at Detective651 on Twitter, DeviantArt, and WordPress.
Scott Reed, you can find me at bergcomics.com. I want to again mention my eBay store, stores.ebay.com/bergcomics. I've been posting several $100s worth of books daily here for the past several days, and hopefully we'll continue to do that for the next few days. So, lots of new products showing up on the eBay store.
All right. Well, sounds great. Thanks again, gentlemen. Thanks to everybody that's listening to, and we encourage you to, subscribe to the podcast. And we will, private joke there, we will talk to you next time. Until then.